Reloader back with you again, and a continuation of the 5.7 by 28 endeavor. So parts started coming in, and that's when I decided to start putting videos together. Still waiting on other components, but at least this is a start. As I told you, I'm going to use my Lee turret press for this particular reload, and I'm a Lee fan. I've read pros and cons about all different kinds of dies, and what I'm looking at right now, and I've approached reloading this way in the past, is I'll start from an economic point of view. Do I even like this particular round? I haven't even shot it yet, so I don't know if this is going to even be a fit. So for what some vendors want for their dies, I think the highest I've seen is, in fact, I'm not going to bash vendors' names, manufacturers, so I'm not going to. I've seen very expensive versions of this. The Lee 2-die set was, I think, roughly $40. The turret was around $12. The factory crimp, I think, was like $15 or $20. Powder charge for thin bottleneck rifle, another like 15. And take my prices plus or minus, because they're averages. You could probably find something cheaper on some off-name site versus either going to Amazon or Midway or Brownells or whomever you favor, Powder Valley, Mid-South, you name it. There's just tons of vendors out there that will sell you what you need. I love putting my dies in cases to keep them from getting all gunged up with dust and other stuff, so that it keeps them kind of fresh and clean. As I told you before, this is the Hornady VMAX. I think 250 was about $45, obviously plus shipping. And this is the round I'm going to stick with because of the amount of load data, the fact that it's an FN factory round, or at least factory bullet in their factory round. That's a good thing. And again, keeping with Lee for cost containment, is there's not a whole lot of case trimmers out there. WFT, World's Finest Trimmer by Little Crow, makes their trimmer, which I have in their various different calibers. That's like $70-ish. CTS, which I can't remember what the CTS stands for, the T being trimming. I reached out to them, and they can custom make. They've got the print for the 5.7. They just don't carry it on their website. Their price is more reasonable. I like that setup a little better, where you're chucking in the trimmer and then just inserting the brass, as opposed to fighting with the Lee. But again, from a cost point of view, you can't beat Lee, hands down. And then I reached out to a company called Sheridan Engineering for their gauge. So again, since this is a rifle / pistol round, I figured I wasn't going to mess around with trying to drop it in the barrel by disassembling the handgun, and then I'll just use the go gauge for sizing to make sure that's okay. So the next few minutes are going to be an unboxing of things that make sense to unbox. Obviously, doesn't make sense to unbox that right at the moment. It's interesting to see the transition of Lee. This looks like some of their newer casings, newer kind of print compared to when I started 10 years ago. I want to say the red was more of a clear kind of plastic, not necessarily this plastic, but at the end of the day, I don't keep my dies in their case, so it's kind of a who cares point of view. But what Lee packages, and I thought was kind of interesting, because when I got this, it specifically said no little lube, obviously instructions. Even the instructions are nicer than the black and white what used to come. But it said no dipper with this die set, and lo and behold, here's a dipper. So I don't know if this is a newer version of the die set or an older version of the die set. I've read some comments online that Lee had some problems with their dies in the 5.7 by 28 and they revamped them. So again, I don't know if this is the old one and I got new old stock, but because this looks kind of new in terms of the new design, I'm hoping this is the newer version. So obviously a dipper, which I will never use. The shell holder, which I think is actually, I'm not sure if that was a number 2. This is a number 15. I don't think I have a number 15 shell holder. And it's definitely not a number 2 because a number 2 is, or excuse me, a number 4 is 223. So number 15. Again, other die manufacturers, you buy everything separately. You have to buy the shell holder. You have to buy individual dies. Some of them have sets, but I've seen sets as high as like $200, and that's just a little too rich for my blood. So there is the decap and resize, and that is the seating die. I will do the factory crimp. I'm a fan of the Lee factory crimp. This particular casing is a few years ago. So it looks like this is an older die set, not as old as what was packaged in the square boxes, but this came along a few years ago. It looks like it's more for hanging on a peg hook at a retail shop. Retail shop. But trying to find any Lee stuff at a retail shop is like needle in a haystack. So your best bet is online, whether that's eBay, Titan, Lee itself, or again some of the other aforementioned shops. And then this is definitely a new thing for Lee. This particular, I love how they have their instructions like half hanging out on everything, which again, no big deal, just kind of interesting. So this, I'm trying to do it offhanded with the video running is never easy. This is the long, it's called the long charging die, and I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to use it because one, I don't plan on using any of the auto chargers because again, the sensitivity of being off 1/10 of a grain could be the difference between a successful firing and potentially damaging the gun and or me. So this is more for just filling it manually. So what I'll probably do is, depending on how successful that is, so the case mouth for this is quite small. So again, it's meant for a 22 and above, so that will be perfect for sitting in there. So my thought was, what I'll do is I'll just have, in fact, I'll even leave this in here, which I never do because I usually have a some type of powder charger in there that screws in here that I won't be using. So this will sit in the turret just like this. In fact, let me grab the powder funnel, and that's Murphy's Law, of course. If it will fall, it will fall. So while I'm measuring my powder charge on an electric scale, and I've heard pros and cons of using electric scale, but if I can't trust my electric scale, I've got bigger problems. So I will have this in the die. I'll manually charge, and then I will just fill that. So that again, I'm going to treat this I'm going to treat this load a little more sensitive than maybe I would with something else. And then, as I said, I use this. So we can go ahead and at least assemble some stuff. And yes, I went ahead and pre-labeled the tool head 5728. And the way this comes from the factory is like this, because they expect you, if you were old school, as in single stage, you would just be setting things in here and taking them out and I believe that's for your dipper. So a 3-die set, and that's kind of what the intent of this setup was. I don't use it this way. I flip it around because I store my die like that, and I have found that this is an excellent way of keeping them clean after use. So station number 1, and obviously I'm not going to be setting these up today, so this is kind of just not even a quick fit, but and I think if memory serves, and I'll double check this because it's been a while for me, I want to say that the press rotates, and I'm throwing this into my press. Press rotates counterclockwise. I wanted to confirm that. So, because Murphy's Law would say that I would set this up, and let me stand up and do this. Murphy's Law says I would set that up for the wrong direction. I would set it up for clockwise. So station 1 is going to be my decap. Station 2 is going to be, and I wonder if they have a short. So they have this is long because of the fact that in fact what I'll do is I'll put it in anyway with the. And you can't see this because obviously I'm off, but what I'm trying to do is get an idea of how I would set those, how deep based on the shell plate. So I'll do that in a minute. Station 3 is going to be my bullet seating. And station 4 is going to be and these are a little finicky to get off. Oh wow. What is that? Huh. I've never seen that before. That looks like leftover shavings. Wow. I'm going to have to look that die over a little more closely. That was interesting. First time opening, and so there's nothing in the die. Let me toss those. Those are definitely, let's see if they're magnetic. Here's my handy dandy magnet. Oh yeah, those are magnetic. I hope that's like leftover factory stuff as opposed to a messed up die. Let's open this up and see. Let's see what we have. So we've got a little bit of gunk in there. It's a little oily too. I'm going to blow that out right after I pick up my metal shavings. Alright, so there's my metal shavings from inside the crimp body. Never be without compressed air, ever. I'm going to say that was my machining. All right, so that and I'm just looking this over to see if there's any more. Okay, that's just oil. Nothing else there. Okay, so I will call that a little bit rough around the edges on quality control for finishing. And that will be station number 4 and final. So I think there's about a gazillion videos on how to set up your dies, so I'm not going to bother with that. Suffice to say that that will go in my turret press, and we'll be moving along. More to come as usual. Take care.